Okay. Today we are going to do the Ring to Cage C17 2.0 gloves. These gloves are, the Japanese style glove that Ring to Cage makes. It's supposed to pretty much emulate or come really close to a winning style glove, and I could actually see where the influences are. I got this in the marine green colorway. It was the only colorway that I think that they had in stock at the time. I actually bought these from Amazon, but I know on the website there's a cheaper price. So if you actually go on their website, that'd be a better deal. And also, I think they offer these in customs if you want to do that as well, which is, I'm sure is a fantastic price as well. So I do want to weigh these because these are 16-ounce gloves. And the beauty about these gloves is that the indicator here is right there on the grip bar, just like a pair of winning gloves. And I think that's probably one of the best places to put it. In my opinion. I know there's also an indicator, I think, on the inside on a tag here. I think it's here. But essentially, yeah. So if you look on the inside here, it's kind of cut, but it says 16 ounces, but it's a little cut short, and it says made in Pakistan. So that's also a 16-ounce indicator if anything goes wrong with the grip bar. So I'm going to weigh these and see if they're actually close to the weight. Let's see. I am going to 16.12. Okay. Let's try this again. I might have to try that glove again. All right. Okay, 16.51. Okay. And this one is 16.23. Okay. So yeah. Essentially, they're a little over on the. They're a little over. It's not a big deal. I think that's perfectly acceptable for a 16-ounce glove. I've been getting a lot of 16-ounce gloves that have been under, and I actually really appreciated that it's a little over. I actually kind of prefer it a little bit. When it comes to the leather of the glove, it just says that this is like every other website or anything else. They'll say that it's a high-grade cowhide leather. This feels like a Pakistan leather, to be honest with you. I've had many Pakistan gloves. This glove's obviously made in Pakistan. The leather itself is actually it's not the thickest leather, but it's also, it isn't the thinnest I've felt as well. And it has a nice texture to it. It has like a matte type of finish to it. So you kind of feel that, you probably could even hear it, but you kind of feel it. So it is a nice a leather. I don't mind this leather at all. I think there's a reason why a lot of people are making their gloves in Pakistan. But yeah, I think they do a really good job with their leather. In terms of the smell, there is no smell. It's no fancy smell like you're going to get with a Mexican-made glove or anything like that. But it is, I think it's a really good leather, especially for the price of the glove. I think it's pretty fantastic. And I think it's it's acceptable for sure. It's not a cheap leather whatsoever, in my opinion. The liner, as interesting as this is, so I'm trying to figure out what type of liner it was. So I kept scouring the internet to try to figure it out. So as you can see on the inside, it actually has kind of its own name. It says Dry Max, as you can see, and it kind of reminds me of like that Everlast, Ever Dry liner, because it has that same type of that same type of look, but it doesn't feel the same. This is a little bit more rough and it's soft, and the Everlast is kind of a little more on the smoother, silkier side, a little more shiny on the inside as well. So that was interesting. This feels like a tricot liner to me. When I look it up, it says that they've improved it with their nylon liner. So I mean, I guess to them it's a nylon liner. It feels kind of like a tricot type of deal for me. It's a little more of a warmer liner, in my opinion, and something that is supposed to be moisture wicking. And I think it soaks up moisture well. But that's the problem as well, is too, when you start sweating in a glove, you might have that issue where you sweat a lot and then the glove kind of soaks it all in, and you have to really air it out. That's kind of been my experience a little bit. But ultimately, I think the liner is extremely comfortable, and I think it's one of those liners that keeps your hand in place. And it's not, you know, sometimes you might get a silky liner and your hand kind of, if you throw a jab too quick, you kind of feel the glove kind of pulling away from your arms. This is not going to be the case here. You're going to pretty much be cinched in there because this liner has a lot of texture to it, and it's very warm, and it's not exactly silky smooth. As you can see, there's a big patch here. This reminds me of old school, the way they did it back in the day, like the title gloves. They used to have this patch here, and it's essentially just here to tell you, like, it's a warning label saying, like, hey, gloves are not going to save your life all the time, and you might get hurt using the glove. Boxing is dangerous, yada, yada, yada. But I wish they didn't have that there, because, I mean, it doesn't bother me too much, but when I first initially was putting it on and trying on the glove, it was a little scratchy in that portion of my arm, but it did get smoother through time. Not a huge deal, but just something I have to mention. The padding of the glove is a multi-layer padding. Now, this is something, I don't know exactly how many layers. I've looked around. They said it might be 4 layers, possibly, but I'm not gonna go too crazy on that because I'm not sure. I will say that they say that it's a 1.5 inch thickness on the padding, and it's multi-layer padding, and it's, in my opinion, I'll tell you how it feels a little bit later, but I'll squish it down. But keep in mind, this is supposed to be similar to a winning style foam, but it's different, definitely different. So in terms of Japanese style, I don't have a 16 ounce with me. I had ordered some, so they're not gonna come until, you know, God knows when. But I will say I have an 18 ounce. I'll actually, let me get the 18 ounce. I have an 18 ounce glove here. And right off the rip, you can kind of see that there's differences in the gloves and stuff like that. But ultimately, we have the same type of, you know, idea, right? Which is going to be, you're going to have the double cuff on the bottom here. This is kind of a longer cuff. This is a shorter cuff. You're going to have the badge here. Obviously, this badge is a lot different than this kind of like cloth badge that they have here. But either way, they're still around the same size and have their own little logos here. In terms of the thumb, I would say that this is, keep in mind, I had this glove right here has a cut thumb here, so just keep that in mind. The thumbs are different, in my opinion. I think this thumb is obviously a little shorter, maybe a little wider than a regular 16 ounce. This is 18 ounce, like I said. So you're going to see a little bit of a bigger glove here, and it's a little grimy, so sorry about that. Yeah, so ultimately you'll see that the patterns are similar. You have the double stitching areas here. You're going to have that straight line across. In terms of the indicator, you're going to see the indicator there with the double stitching. Same thing here. Yeah, ultimately you see that they have a lot of similarities. You can see the stitching kind of goes together all the way down to the glove. So, and even to the laces. I mean, the laces on Winnings, I mean, they're not like super round or anything, but you know, they have kind of like the same type of feel and material. This is more of a round, thicker, and it has, you know, the obvious plastic tips. When Winnings, obviously they don't. They have this cut piece. I don't know why they do that, but so yeah, I mean, even the logo in the front, you'll see that it's a very simplistic logo. So just keep that in mind. These gloves are meant to emulate the Japanese style, aka the winning glove, and they do a decent job at doing that. And I have no problem with that. In terms of the sizing of the glove, I think this is just right where a 16 ounce glove should be. Maybe on a little bit on the thicker side on the padding here, but yeah, I don't see it being massive or anything. I think this is, when I think of a 16 ounce glove, this is exactly the size that I think of. I don't think this is compact at all. I think this is just right there, right? If there was a scale, it'll be like large, medium, and small. This will be right there in the medium section. So I think that this is a really good size for a glove as well. Now, when it comes to the wrist of the glove, as you see, there's a double cuff like we mentioned before. They still have the stitching, which is kind of still there to emulate kind of a winning, which is like a single stitching, and then they roll over on the corners here. It's not as clean, obviously, but this cuff is a lot firmer, And I think the wrist protection on these gloves are a lot better than winning gloves. So you'll see that it has a decent amount of thick padding on the back here. And I would probably say it's like an inch or so, maybe more, maybe an inch. And it's pretty firm, and it does do a really good job at protecting the back of your hand. Very, very good. And it kind of cinches in really well too. In the beginning, in the inner portion, you can see that there is less padding, right? But the less padding doesn't really, it is still more firm than a pair of Winnings in my opinion. And I think in terms of the wrist, I think it does a better job in my opinion. But obviously it's not going to beat a pair of Winnings. But just ultimately, if they did have an upper hand, it would probably be in the wrist portion, because the Winning gloves are notorious for really flimsy wrists. When it comes to, this glove is okay balanced as well. I don't ever mention that, but it's decently balanced, a little top heavy. All right, so also what I want to talk about is things like the grip bar here. This is one of my favorite portions of the glove, and the reason why is because normal grip bars kind of have that like a cylinder. It's like, it's round. It's like a cylinder around. It's not really like this rectangular shape that they have here. I like that because I feel like I could grip better on a grip bar that's like that, and the size is great as well, and the firmness of the grip bar is actually really nice. So I like the size, I like the firmness, and I like the shape of the grip bar. It feels different. It's not that just regular cylinder that they usually put inside of a glove. I like that they do that. One thing I do not like too much is the fact that there are no air holes anywhere on the glove. And like I told you before, the glove kind of is warm, so having air holes would have benefited for sure. Because I sweat in these, surprisingly. I do sweat in them, and it is something that, especially with tricot liners and stuff like that, I noticed that they're very, very, very comfortable, probably the most comfortable, but they are the ones that I sweat the most in. And everyone should probably have that same exact experience, because it's like putting like a warm mitten on, and you're gonna sweat in it, you know what I mean? So it is what it is. Stitching on the gloves, really good, actually. I don't see any problems with the stitching. It's really actually shockingly clean when I'm actually looking at it. I think that's the one thing that surprised me the most. The only issue I have, I would say, is in the inside of this glove right here. You'll see that it was a lot, just me getting the glove, this is how it was. So there's a lot of fraying on the inside of the liner. As you can see, this pulling out a little bit. Not a big deal for me at all, but in terms of the stitching on the outer end, on the outside of the glove, not a problem. I would say that I wish that this is kind of, it's a little thick and it's a little high, this badge. It's not like gonna cut you or anything, but you could feel it. So if you do miss somebody and you kind of get that portion right there, I wish it was a little more rounded and a little more, maybe less thick, and then you probably have it, so it's not too abrasive, I guess. But it's not huge. It's not a big deal. It's just me nitpicking because I have to. Because I like these gloves so much that I have to say something bad about them, or everyone's going to think that I'm just like, a fanboy. But this is a really good glove. Now, in terms of this inside hand compartment here, like I said before, you put your hands on the inside. It looks really, really comfortable. And I would say that ultimately, when you do put your hands on the inside, you do notice that there is a good amount. I wouldn't say it's really big hand compartment, because it's definitely not. I have medium-sized hands, and I think that this is like right there in the middle, and I could put any type of knuckle guard on, and I'll have no problems in this glove. So I feel like this is definitely a good glove for sparring and things like that, because a lot of the other gloves that I wish I could spar in, they're really tight, and putting all of that on your hands, whether it's gauze or anything like that, could be really difficult on a lot of tight gloves. This is not the case. This glove right now, I am not doing anything with my hands. I'm leaving it just normal, and I'll open it up and then I'll close it. But it kind of comes in this kind of semi opened up position here. So Just keep that in mind. This is, you know, some gloves might just come automatically in a fist position. This is kind of right in the middle. So my hands are essentially doing this. Okay. Now, the thumb is extremely comfortable. I have no problem with the thumb. I can move it around. There's no bagginess for me. There's probably a smidge on the corners here. I could touch a little bit of bagginess on the liner, but it really, you can't really feel it unless you're really looking for it. Very, very protective thumb. Firm padding on the outside of it, so there's no problem there. I have no problem jamming my thumbs whatsoever. I think I could just throw this. I could throw any shot I want, and I don't feel like I'm going to get hurt with this glove. So that's a good thing as well. We have some really good padding on the back end, and that's very, very good padding. I love this about the glove is that, you know, this backhand portion is very protective. It's one of those things that I think like I overlook sometimes with gloves, but I love that because when you do get hit, it doesn't hurt as much when you, especially when you're in a high guard. You know, you're trying to make sure that some gloves, even if you get hit in high guard, you kind of feel it on your hands. This is not that glove. It has a lot of padding on the back end. Very, very good gloves. So in terms of the fingertip compartment, it's kind of like I wouldn't say it's a rolled up piece of leather or anything. I would say that maybe it's a folded piece. It doesn't have that rolled up feeling. It kind of has more of a flat feeling on my fingers. It feels like kind of like if I have a neoprene, but it's not. It doesn't. It's flat like neoprene, but it doesn't feel like that. It kind of feels like it just folded over, and it does give you this flat feel, and you could definitely make a good fist with it. And this grip bar obviously feels unbelievable with that as well. So I think they did a really good job with that and the grip bar. Yeah, so ultimately hands open, hands closed. The break-in period was not very long at all. And I would just get to the foam. The foam, I think that's because of the foam, essentially. I don't know how many layers is really on this, but the foam is thick. And I would say that it's like a squishy feeling foam. It's not necessarily like a winning feeling foam. It kind of feels softer, but because there's so much more of it, I feel, it's still really protective. So when I do land a shot or I hit something, it kind of disperses really well. So as soon as I hit the bag, I just feel like the energy is dispersing out of the sides. And I'm just like, okay, this is a different feeling, because sometimes gloves are, you know, really protective, but you still kind of feel the shock on your knuckles. I don't feel that whatsoever. I think this is an ultra protective glove, but with like a nice kind of soft padding. I would say it's a medium to soft, maybe a medium. Just say medium maybe, but you know, if I had to say, if it was gonna, you know, waver, I would say it's probably in the medium to soft a little bit, and it's gonna get softer, I think. And it kind of reminds me of when winning gloves do break down and they get softer and they just feel better. I feel like that's how it is right now with this glove. I enjoyed it like right away. So definitely something that I was surprised about. The punch surface is large, but it's also rounded. So keep that in mind. You're probably not going to get the biggest crack out of these on a bag or anything like that. I'll try to make a video at the end of this video showing me hit it on my soft heavy bag. That's probably about 250 pounds. And I can't get a massive crack out of it, but it's not because I don't think the gloves don't give good crack. It's just probably the bag itself. So just keep that in mind. You're probably going to end up, you know, depending on the bag you're using, whether it's a nozzle bag that's a lot more firm, you might get more crack out of that. But ultimately, these are really, like, in my opinion, they're all around great gloves, but they're not going to excel at, you know, hitting the bags, and they'll probably be better at sparring, to be honest with you. But ultimately, I think they're so great at what they do right now. So I'm just going to hit my hands with it right now. Let's see if you could hear any kind of good pop at least. So yeah, like I said, great protective glove. The pop is okay. We're talking about a foam glove, multi-layer foam. So I don't expect to have a horsehair type of pop on the gloves. Just keep it as is. The knuckle placement of the glove, which I talked about earlier, is actually really good. I feel my knuckles right here, so you're probably going to end up hitting here, but I do feel my knuckles, and once you get to that point, it does get protective. So the punch surfaces, I would say, a little flatter than Winnings right out of the box, but obviously when you break down a pair of Winnings, they start looking like this. So essentially, I think these are a fantastic, like a Winning clone. You're never going to get Winning, obviously. You're never going to get the thing you want if it's going to be something that's going to be replicating it. But this is the biggest part of the glove itself is the price. When we get to the price of the glove, we're talking about $85 on their website. That's pretty crazy to me. I think that's so... I always talk about, you know, price and performance. And if I think to myself, how much can the glove perform for the price that it is, right? This glove should not be $85. It should be far more than $85. And it's really shocking that it's $85. So just keep that in mind. If you do want to get these gloves, that price is just such a killer price. I mean, we're talking insanely low. I got these on Amazon though, and I paid $120, and obviously I think on the site you pay less. But even for $120, I'm just like, this is crazy. This isn't that. This just should not be $120. I've tried so many gloves, and there's been gloves that underperform compared to this glove, and I've tried Winning clones, right, that underperform compared to this glove. So it's really pleasant to see. Like, I've been getting really into these budget gloves, and I've been, you know, really getting shocked at some of these budget gloves and how they perform. So in my opinion, it's definitely a fantastic glove, and I would definitely buy it if you're a beginner or a professional, because the price is just so good. I could buy like 10 of these before I have enough money to buy a pair of Winnings, so just keep that in mind. So very, very good glove. Probably one of my favorite budget gloves. It'll definitely make it up there on the list in terms of what would be my favorite budget glove out there, and this is really up there. So that's my review.